There's a quiet promise woven into the fabric of daily life, a fundamental understanding that the value of your labor, your savings, and your future will hold steady. This promise is embodied in the money we use, the banks that safeguard it, and the institutions that govern our economic world. But imagine a time when that promise dissolved, not slowly, not over decades, but with a dizzying speed that redefined reality for millions. Imagine going to sleep with what you believed was a comfortable nest egg, only to wake and find it was, quite literally, nothing more than paper. This profound and deeply destabilizing experience was not a distant fantasy. It was the harsh truth for the people of Germany in the early 1920s, as hyperinflation gripped the nation and reshaped lives in ways few could have ever predicted. The stage for this dramatic financial unraveling was set in the aftermath of the First World War. Germany, having lost the war, was burdened by immense reparation payments to the victorious Allied powers. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, imposed a staggering financial obligation. The newly formed Weimar Republic, a fragile democracy attempting to rebuild a shattered nation, faced an impossible task. With limited ways to generate the vast sums required, the government resorted to what seemed like the easiest solution: printing more money. Initially, this strategy led to a gradual rise in prices, but by 1922, the situation began to accelerate rapidly. As the government continued to print banknotes at an ever-increasing pace to pay its debts and fund public services, the confidence in the German mark began to erode. People started to realize that the money they held was losing its purchasing power faster than ever before. This decline in trust was insidious at first, a creeping doubt, but it soon became a full-blown panic. The value of the mark, which had once been relatively stable, now seemed to fluctuate wildly from day to day, then hour to hour. Banks, once symbols of security, became places where money lost its worth just by sitting there. The unspoken pact between the people and their currency, a pact built on the belief in its stable value, had shattered. The economic mechanics of this hyperinflation were terrifyingly simple, yet devastating in their effect. When more money is created without a corresponding increase in goods or services, the existing money becomes worth less. Prices skyrocket. What cost a few marks yesterday might cost hundreds today, and thousands tomorrow. Imagine going to the bakery for a loaf of bread. In early 1922, it might have been 160 marks. By July 1923, the same loaf cost 3,500 marks. Just 4 months later, in November 1923, it rocketed to an incomprehensible 428 billion marks. Wages, which once provided a decent living, couldn't keep up. People would be paid their salaries in large sacks or even wheelbarrows full of banknotes. They would rush to spend it immediately, often during their lunch break, because by the evening, the money they held would have lost a significant portion of its value. Factories sometimes paid their workers twice a day, so they could buy essentials before prices surged further. The human impact of this rapid decline was profound and deeply painful. It was the middle class, those who had diligently saved their entire lives, who suffered most acutely. Pensioners, whose fixed incomes had once ensured a comfortable old age, found their monthly payments wouldn't even buy a single meal. Families who had carefully put money aside for their children's education or a new home watched in bewildered despair as their life savings evaporated into thin air. An inheritance that could have provided security for generations suddenly became worthless paper. People sold their heirlooms, their jewelry, anything of tangible value just to put food on the table. Farmers who had goods to sell suddenly found themselves in a relatively stronger position, while urban dwellers starved for basics. The indignity of needing a suitcase full of money for a simple grocery run, or seeing children play with stacks of once precious banknotes, was a constant, stark reminder of their lost security. The psychological toll was immense, a sense of betrayal by the very system they had trusted. The breaking point arrived in November 1923. The German mark had become so utterly worthless that it was effectively useless as a medium of exchange. People were literally burning banknotes for fuel because they were cheaper than wood. Businesses refused to accept payment in marks, preferring barter or foreign currency. The economic life of the nation had ground to a halt. It was at this critical juncture that the government took decisive action, introducing a new currency called the Rentenmark. This new currency was backed, not by gold, but by a mortgage on all of Germany's agricultural and industrial resources, a symbolic gesture of tangible value that aimed to restore confidence. One Rentenmark was set equal to 1 trillion old marks. This drastic revaluation effectively wiped out the old currency, and with it, the hyperinflation. The introduction of the Rentenmark brought stability back to the German economy, but the scars of the hyperinflation ran deep. The experience taught a harrowing lesson about the fragility of trust in financial systems. Money, at its core, is a shared belief in value. When that belief is shattered, when the institutions meant to uphold it falter, the consequences can be devastating, stripping away not just wealth, but dignity and hope. The story of Germany's hyperinflation serves as a powerful reminder that the stability of our currency and the integrity of our financial institutions are not mere economic concepts, but the very foundation upon which a stable and predictable human existence is built.